Hi, thanks for tuning in. This is the ASX and Sectors weekly chart analysis for the week ending 24th of October 2025. The first chart is the XJO. This is the S&P ASX 200 index. It's a weekly chart, and you can see the arrowed level is the important level at the moment. Down here is where we saw strong buying support emerge, and the market pushed up pretty strongly for a period, and then you can see the market slowly been rolling over. We saw supply being drawn out here, mainly in response to overseas trading. The market pulled back, moved into consolidation mode for a period, pushed back up to the important level. This is where price broke down from, and tested for supply, and then attempted to break out. It did draw out supply here, and this week the market's traded above this level, this important level, pretty much in absorption mode. The market attempted to push higher, drifted lower, and closed a little off its lows for the week. This, I expect, will prove to be an absorption bar. It does look a little threatening at the moment, so we'll just see how the market responds next week. There may be a little test for supply early next week in response, but I expect this will prove to be an absorption bar of some kind. If the market was to pull back, you've got support back at this level down here in this range for the market to attempt to find support at this level. So at this point in time, I expect this will prove to be an absorption bar, and the market may attempt to move higher in response when trading conditions are more favourable. Next chart is the mid-cap sector. The mid-cap sector is comprised of the bottom 50 stocks in the ASX 100 index. It gives you a more broader look at the top 100. Same down here, we saw the strong buying support and the initial push higher. This market's rolled over a little as well, but perhaps not to the same degree as the parent index. Here was that pullback, period of consolidation through here like this. And this market's actually broken above this important level. It's been trading in consolidation mode for the past 2 weeks. And this week, price has just popped its head above the highs of that range. So this market is leading the parent index at the moment. This market's already broken out above that level. It appears to have found sufficient support to maintain itself above that level. And it's just made a brief attempt to push above that level this week. Whether it'll be successful or not, we'll have to wait and see. But it does look like there is some intent being shown. This market would like to go higher. This is a small ordinary sector. The small ordinary sector is comprised of the bottom 200 stocks in the ASX 300 index. Here was the same buying support that came into the market, and there was a lackluster trade to start with here before this market actually found some increased support and accelerated higher once it became established that the market was trending higher overall. There's a period of absorption through here and then a push out the top. This is the important level up here. The market's pulled back from that level after a couple of weeks of consolidation. You do note that the market is still trading comfortably within the range of this bar. It would take a break below the lows of that bar to really be threatening in the market and probably see it come back to somewhere around this level. But at the moment, the market's trading comfortably within the range of this bar, and the close well off the week's low this week suggests that buying support was present in the market. You may find there's an early test for supply next week, and then an attempt to push higher if trading conditions are favourable. Next chart is the financial sector. They've been trading sideways for quite some time now. They were leading for a while. Here's the buying support, which emerged previously, a strong push higher initially. The market did roll over a little bit at this point. And here was some consolidation in response and a push higher in response to that. And the market has found some supply drawn out. And in this period here, it's continuing to consolidate, but it hasn't really made any serious challenge to the highs of the range at this point. This week's bar looks like absorption. If that's the case, and it is successful, it will help to clear a path above of least resistance where the market may be able to push higher. The highs of the intermediate ranges through here, you can see the market's traded within that range for the whole week pretty much and above the previous bar's close. So that does look like an absorption bar. If it's successful, it will help to absorb supply above and possibly create some sort of supply vacuum, which will allow the market to move up through a path of least resistance. That will, of course, require trading conditions to be at least neutral and relatively favourable overall. This is the metals and mining subsector, and they pulled back this week, but have closed within the range of the previous bar. You'll see after this period of consolidation here, the market broke out above that level, pushed higher for 2 weeks. Then there was an absorption bar. It looked threatening at the time, but at no stage did the market even look like pulling back. The market on this bar effectively traded higher, then faded lower in absorption mode, and then pushed higher in response. And that's kind of what I expect the market has done locally this week in the broader parent index. Commodities were a little weaker this week, and in response, the market's pulled back, pretty much trading within the range of the previous bar for the entire week, and volume reduced on that, which is often the case. The previous bar had pushed higher, and this bar has moved back through where the trading has taken place the week before. So anyone who wanted to trade in that range had done so the week before, and that leaves reduced activity in the market. The market's closed well off its lows this week, and that suggests that buying support did emerge near the lows of the previous bar. And that would suggest that the market will at least attempt to move higher in response next week, possibly up to the highs of the range, if trading conditions are relatively favourable. Next chart is the gold sector. Price pulled back along with the commodity this week. It did close right at the logical level. As price moved higher, you'll see there's a period of consolidation in response each time. Here's the consolidation, and that's usually forming where you'll find support through here like this. And that's where the market found support this week. Here's the push higher, here's the consolidation, there's the line across, and the market's pulled back to that level this week. A break below that level, we'll possibly see this level come into play next week, but I expect there'll be an attempt to support the market at this level next week, or at least around that level. This is the energy sector. Similar to some of those other charts, here's where the buying support came in the background, and the push higher in response. It was a good strong push higher. The market did find some selling pressure emerge up here, and the market topped out. And after a period of possible distribution through here, the market did break down. There was a reluctance over this period to move lower, and the market has found some support back as price came back to this level. The market really could have stretched lower during this period, and it didn't really do so. And then in 1 week, this week, the market's pretty much recovered all that month's losses. That's generally a sign of strength for the market. There may be a period of consolidation in response now, like this. For a few days. I'm drawing daily bars here on a weekly chart, but you may get a little bit of consolidation through here like this before there's any serious attempt to break out above that level. But the fact that the market found it difficult to move lower through here, there was a reluctance to move lower, and then this week a month's trading was completely wiped out and the market pushed higher, recovering all that lost ground in 1 week on relatively modest volume, suggests that the sellers are possibly exhausted and the buyers were easily able to carry price higher. So look for a period of consolidation in response next week. If that's the case, there may be an attempt to break out later in the week. This is the healthcare sector, which has been trading really some ups and downs more recently. We saw some buying support emerge here, and the market pushed up and then went through a period of accumulation through here. It looked like the market was up and away here and was going to challenge the highs of the range up here. But up at this level is where the market saw some financial numbers released, and they obviously weren't favourable at the time, and price broke down. And it broke down pretty seriously down here. There was an attempt to support the market back down here, and I've drawn this green box because I suspect there's a period of accumulation taking place down here. Some buying support did emerge. There's been a shakeout down here over 2 bars. Test for supply, push back up into the zone, and the market has respected this level this week, closing right at the important level. It's an intermediate level within the range, but when the market's respecting levels like that, something's generally up. And I suspect this market is attempting to accumulate through here. It'll probably go on for some time yet, sideways through here like this, but there's an attempt to accumulate here. It's not to say that it'll be successful yet, but there's an attempt to do so, or I suspect there's an attempt to do so. This is the industrial sector, and after a really good run up, which we followed for weeks and weeks, supply was drawn out here. The market pulled back in response, went through a period of consolidation, and then pushed higher again. The market came back mainly because the broader market was trading lower at the time, and it ended up being a period of consolidation that really moved quite deep. You'll note that the lows of this stronger up bar were respected here. The market did test them and closed back at that important level before reversing, and then the market's moved up. You've got the intermediate little high through there, which the market has respected nicely, and I expect this market is well placed to issue some sort of challenge to the highs of the range when trading conditions are favourable. It's looking like the market would like to move higher, but it will need favourable trading conditions to do so. This is the consumer staples, pretty much supermarkets in Australia. And you can see the last 3 weeks, the market's attempting to consolidate. It doesn't really want to move much lower. It's had the opportunity to do so, but you can see on this bar, it's dipped lower and closed well off the week's lows. This bar actually traded below the previous bar's low and recovered the lost ground. And this bar, we saw spread narrow considerably, volume narrow considerably, suggesting that selling pressure has eased. And this market is well placed to attempt to push higher, or at least issue a challenge to this breakdown line in the background. You've got some levels above that where you may find some resistance, but I suspect there'll be an attempt at least to push higher pretty soon, possibly next week. This is consumer discretionary, which had a very strong push higher for a little while there. Here is the buying support in the background. There was a extended period of consolidation in response before price actually pushed higher here. 1 week's consolidation and a secondary push higher, and the market looked like it was going to really get cracking, but you can see the market wasn't able to push up against the highs of the range here. It was fading lower. That's always a little bit of a concern, and in response the market did try to hold on here, broke below the breakdown line here, and this week it's really only been strong enough to move up to that line. Now, it may issue a challenge to it if the overall market, the broader market, is stronger in response. This market will probably be dragged up along with it and issue some sort of challenge to that level. And if not, I expect the market will continue sideways, at least for some time, and build up some strength and attempt to absorb any supply that is drawn out. It did look like it was quite strong. It's been a little weak in the last little period. This is the ASX property sector, which actually pushed above the important level this week. It's been trading in consolidation mode for a little period here after some weakness emerged here. We noted at the time there was a little shakeout in response. The market attempted to just wipe its hands of it straight away, but supply was drawn out on this bar, you can see here, and the market pulled back in response. It's been a month in consolidation mode through here before price pushed back up to this level, and it's just popped its head and made an attempt to break out this week, break out above the highs of the range here where we saw supply previously. Spread was actually reduced this week, so it wasn't a strong breakout, but it's an attempt to break out, and we'll just see how the market plays it from here. You may probably get a test for supply early next week, and you'll see a response depending on how much supply is actually drawn out. Just back to the parent index quickly before we wrap up. You can see where we are on the chart. You can see that supply was drawn out on this bar here, and this week we've traded within that range above the previous bar's close for pretty much the whole week in what I expect will prove to be absorption mode. It looks a little threatening at the moment with the poor close, but I suspect the market has absorbed supply within the range of the previous bar's high and its close. Pretty good volume went through. If the sellers were in charge here, we would have closed lower at least and possibly below the previous bar's lows. We didn't do that at all. We sat right up high for the entire week and closed fractionally higher for the week. I suspect this is absorption, and if that's the case and it proves successful, the market will attempt, I think, to push higher in response when trading conditions allow. Okay, thanks for your time. Back again next week in one form or another. Thanks again. See ya.